Hi everybody, it's Az here from Heel vs Babyface with an anniversary. Yeah, AzChats. Today is actually 3 years to the day, 13th of April 2012, when I released my very first video on this channel. So it's been 3 years, here we are, 2015. And I'm going to do an AzChats for you guys because there's a topic of conversation which I've wanted to discuss and we haven't had one for a while. Now, as always, I must lay down the ground rules of AzChats, as these are more podcasty type of a video as opposed to a visual video. So the more of eye candy, well, ear candy as opposed to eye candy, but I do put something on screen should you wish to be stuck at your computer desk and stare like a hypnotized frog at the screen. Otherwise, feel free to crank up the volume and get on with something around the house. Whatever that may be. This is like the 48th, 49th AzChats. I don't know. I'm running out of analogies to give for that. I think the cat's done everything and the dog's done everything and the yoga instructor's done everything that they possibly can. But as ever, also, because AzChats are quite passionate videos, because I speak from the heart, they do tend to have some fruity language. So if you are offended by fruity language, then why you're on the internet, I have no idea. But this will probably not be the video for you. Or if you are under the age of 18 and feel that you might be exposed to language which you do not like, either ask your parents' permission first or use your own common sense, because even young people can be very, very intelligent should they wish to and have a lot of common sense. It's taken 2 minutes just to say that. Right, so what is the topic of conversation for today? We're going to be discussing Timewalker Dungeons or Timewalker raids for the World of Warcraft. And you could be saying to yourself, well, what is this? Now, this is an idea which has been discussed for a long time, and there is an undercurrent feeling that it's possibly going to make its way into the World of Warcraft at some point. And Timewalker Dungeons, this is the theory. Before I start getting into the practical side of things, the theory behind Timewalker Dungeons and potentially Timewalker raids, we've already seen in essence a Timewalker raid with Molten Core. To an effect, although it was upgraded to level 100, Timewalker Dungeons, Timewalker raids are going to do the opposite. They're actually going to downgrade you to the level of said dungeon. Okay, so for argument's sake, let's say we've all got level 100 characters, alright? Doesn't matter what item level we are at the moment, we've all got level 100 characters. And we want to go back and do the Culling of Stratholme from the Cataclysm expansion, or we want to do Black Morass from the Burning Crusade expansion, etc, etc. Or we want to go off and do, let's pick a completely different one. Let's pick an innocuous one. What about the Sunken Temple? Ooh, in Stonard. If you want to do those dungeons, a Timewalker dungeon will allow you to downgrade to the level of that dungeon, even if you're level 100, and experience it as it should be experienced. Okay? So that is the nature of Timewalker. Same with a raid. You know, let's say you want to go back and do, I was going to say Siege of Orgrimmar. If you follow me on stream, you know exactly what raid I'm talking about. Let's say you wanted to go back and do Dragon Soul, the raid Dragon Soul, for instance, which is a level 85 raid. It will downgrade you to level 85 and all your compatriots, or your however many people will come along for you, will downgrade you all to level 85. It will nerf your spells and abilities to that of a level 85 and will allow you to do that raid, like I said, as was intended. So what are the pros of doing stuff as a Timewalker? You know, what are the pros and cons of Timewalker Dungeons, Timewalker raids? Well, an absolute pro, is that you will be able to theoretically, again, this is all theoretics, theoretically relive older content as it should have been done competitively. So that's the theory behind that. And also, it will give the community more to do. You will actually have more content to do, because at level 100, you can do all the dungeons which the World of Warcraft has produced. And I think there were... Now, I'm going off the top of my head here, so don't try and get all pedantic in the comments, folks. I think it was 20 in Vanilla. I think it was 16 in Burning Crusade and 16 in Wrath of the Lich King. I think it was 12 or 14 in Cataclysm. And then we had 9 in Mists of Pandaria, and currently we've got 8 in Snorbores of Nor. So there's a lot of dungeons there, you know. There is a lot of dungeons there to be done. So it opens up more content for the community to do. So do I want to see... Personally, this is a personal level now, because it's all about me, isn't it? This is a personal thing now. Do I want to see Timewalker Dungeons and raids brought into the World of Warcraft? And the answer is categorically no. No, absolutely not. Now, I am going to completely flip my answer on the head here and confuse everybody. Would I like to see Timewalker Dungeons and raids in the game? Love to. So I'm going to confuse you, right? So, would I like to see them? Absolutely. Should I believe they should go into the World of Warcraft? Categorically, no. So why do I have this ridiculous polarizing opinion on what I want and what should be good for the game? Okay, let me kind of explain the issue here. It's AzChats. This is where we procrastinate, is it not, dear kin? 3 years I've been going on this channel. Right. So let's talk about my desire again. Let's talk about, would I like to see it in the game personally? Should it be in the game? So would I like to see it? Love to. Should it? No. And I'd like to, I mean, I would love to see this, because this is a thing which is in MMORPGs everywhere at the moment. And it doesn't have the Timewalker Dungeon, you know, it doesn't have any fancy name or fancy title for downgrading. The game is intuitive enough to do it automatically anyway. Let's pull a couple of examples out of my sphinctorial area. Number 1, Guild Wars 2. Now, it has been a long time since I've been on Guild Wars 2, people. So, if the information I give here is slightly askew, do forgive. But I'm trying to give a more general context here. So, Guild Wars 2, as far as I can remember, when you go into a zone, each zone has its own sort of like level cap, something like that. So if I'm, for argument's sake, level 50 in Guild Wars 2, and I go to a certain zone, it will downgrade me to level 11. I will only have the power of the of 11. Whether or not that affects my abilities, whether or not it just downgrades my abilities or only lets me use abilities that's up to level 11, I'm not absolutely convinced of. So somebody that plays Guild Wars 2 on a regular basis, please do kind of like add that information for the other people and also to educate myself. But as far as I'm aware, when you go into a zone, it will actually downgrade you to the level of that zone. So you can participate in anything that's going on. And there's lots of activities which go on in zones in Guild Wars 2. Very fluent activities, little events and questing and all that kind of jazz. And then you've got the great little platforming element where you find certain bits and pieces all around the zone, which does involve parkour, which does involve like jumping up and down stuff, and it's really good fun actually. So Guild Wars 2 does that organically. Final Fantasy 14 A Realm Reborn does it slightly differently. It doesn't change your level depending on which zone, or doesn't downgrade you depending on what zone you go into. But in Final Fantasy 14 they have random events which happen in zones called fates. And if you compete in a fate, if you're not maximum level, you'll get experience. You'll also get gil, which is the currency. And if you're a part of a free company, if you play Final Fantasy, you'll know what I'm talking about there, then you'll get some free company seals, which is in essence currency that you're able to use at a specific vendor to get specific goodies. So if you are to participate in one of these random events, one of these fates, then you actually have to click a button which will synchronize your character to the same level of that fate. And with Final Fantasy XIV, it actually locks out abilities that you have got outside of that level. So for argument's sake, let's say the fate which I want to appear in or participate in is a level 10 fate, and I have a level 11 spell. If I synchronize myself to participate in the fate, which means I will get the guild, the experience, and the seals, it will lock out that level 11 spell. I won't be able to use it. I'll just be able to use my spells, which I got my character from level 1 to 10. So it's a very clever way of doing that. And also, with dungeons as well, you can participate in random dungeons, and it does exactly the same. So if I was to queue up, doesn't matter if I'm tank, healer, or DPS, I just queue up to do a random dungeon in Final Fantasy, and if I do my first random dungeon of the day, I get a bonus of gold, I get a bonus of company seals, and all that kind of stuff. It can put me in any level of dungeon, I see fit. And when I go into this level of dungeon, it will downgrade me automatically to the top bracket of level that I could possibly be. So if a dungeon allowed you between the levels of 22 to 25 to participate in it, it would synchronize me to level 25, the top end of that bracket. And just like the Fates, it will lock out any abilities or spells which I got from that highest level upwards. So if it locked me at 25, I could not use my level 26 or above abilities. So I legitimately experienced the dungeon in the way that it was intended. I have downgraded gear. I might have extra stats on my gear because they're higher level. Because when you get to like level 50 and stuff, you get quite a lot of stats on your gear. But they would be downgraded. So yes, I would be slightly more powerful than a regular level 25. But still, I could only use the abilities from a level 1 to 25. And I couldn't go really beyond that. And it's a very organic process. So that's what I'm trying to say. In these two games, it's a very organic process which is already inbuilt into the game. I'll just very briefly touch on if you do another high-level dungeon in Final Fantasy, then it will actually upgrade you. So if your item level is not of an item level for a dungeon, it will say, right, everybody has now been synced to item level 110 for this dungeon. So if I go in at item level 55, even though I'm a level 50 top end character, it will go whoop and it'll double my item level for this dungeon. So I'll actually get more powerful for doing it. Won't change my gear in as much as it won't, it'll just double my stat. Just in essence double all of that. So my item level will double, my stats will double, but it doesn't have to have any effect otherwise. So it's a very organic process. So would I like to see it in a World of Warcraft? Well, in an ideal world, and this is the kind of situation I'm talking in an ideal situation to be able to relive old dungeons and old raids in the World of Warcraft as they were intended would be fantastic. This is where we have the problem, and this is why I say, should it come into the game? Absolutely not, because I'm talking ideal world scenarios here. And the problem with the World of Warcraft is every time a new expansion is launched, there is a colossal and drastic change of how the characters work. You have spells and abilities which are cold. You have new abilities brought in. You have all this, that, and the other. Look at Molten Core, which I mentioned earlier on in the video. If you just look at Molten Core for the anniversary event, for the 10-year anniversary of the World of Warcraft, oh my god, that was a clusterfuck. Yes, the F-bomb has just got dropped. Took me 14 minutes to swear. Holy cow. But yeah, the Molten Core was a horrible clusterfuck of a mess. What they did is they made the bosses do the same abilities that they did in the original, and your characters had to be level 100 to be able to participate in it. And it was just an awful, awful mess. Because just upgrading bosses, but still fighting them now in the abilities that we have today, was nothing like what characters were like at level 60. So it didn't organically happen, and it didn't organically work out. And the fact that it was done in Raid Finder didn't help. So let's just push that to slightly one side then and say, right, F Raid Finder, I don't want to drop too many F-bombs in here. F-Raid Finder, you know, what would happen if you could do it as a regular guild? If you could just queue up as a regular guild, or do it as a group finder, which we can now access, of course, group finder in World of Warcraft now, then surely that would allow you to get a better... a clientele, should we say clientele? A better clientele of player for you to do these things. It still doesn't matter, because the way that characters are set up today are nothing like level 60s. Nothing like level 60s at all. So reliving the experience of Molten Core isn't reliving the experience of Molten Core at all. It's almost like some sort of chimera hybrid. Yes, you're doing Molten Core. Yes, you're doing it at a set level, but is it anything like how it was back in vanilla? Nothing like it whatsoever. And also, dungeons have been changed. Certain dungeons have been changed quite dramatically since, since new expansions have come out, especially since Cataclysm. Cataclysm was a big game changer for a lot of stuff. A lot of dungeons were like merged or broken up or things like that because they were quite long and all that kind of jazz. It would be exactly the same. It really would be exactly the same. It wouldn't matter if we were doing Black Morass or Culling of Stratholme or Molten Core or Dragon Soul. We would not be doing them as they were intended, because the way the characters have developed and changed, and all the way the talent trees have worked, and all the abilities which have been culled and got rid of from the game, it wouldn't be anything like how it used to be. It would be a shell of that. So I would fear we would get ourselves into a Molten Core situation where people would be, first of all, going, yay, isn't that an awesome idea? And then they would literally be forgotten. You'd do them maybe once or twice, and then people would be like, fuck that shit. You know, and the last thing that you'd want to do is to go into an old content. Then we have another major alarm bell. How do you reward it? How do you give out rewards for doing these dungeons? You can't say to your player base, well, the reward, everybody, is by doing it. Fuck you. No, you can't do that. You can't do that whatsoever. That's not a reward system. People have to be adequately rewarded for doing so. Now, currently, having to use Warlords of Draenor as our sort of like benchmark here, what would you reward people in Warlords of Draenor? Apexis crystals? Oh, piss off. There's nothing to do with Apexis crystals anyway. You know, we have this horrible currency system in WoW at the moment. What do? Give people more gold? For what? To buy what? What? You know, there's nothing really rewarding. Do you give them gear? You know, that would scale with what you've got on now? How's that really going to work? Because then Blizzard will start saying, well, people will start to do the easiest method. The easiest is quite difficult to try and speak when you're putting on a silly voice. But I'm trying here, people. Blizzard would say, oh, but people would only do the easiest method possible to get the gear to get as a reward. So we can't put nice gear. So what do we get? Do we get placebo rewards? And what I mean by placebo rewards is stuff which just don't mean anything. So would we see just Blizzard like, oh, well, there's a chance that the final boss might drop a pet. Oh, fuck off. We've got hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fucking pets, Blizzard. Shut up already with the pets. Your placebo pet reward. It's your go-to system now. Oh, it's Noble Garden 2015. What's new from last year? Well, we put a new pet in it. Fuck off. Did you put anything new for people to do? Well, we're waiting for the community to tell us. Oh, get a fuck off. No, it's like that at the minute. It really is. It's just like, what should we do, guys? I don't know. Should we just put a new pet in it so we can keep playing Bloodborne, Jeremy? Yeah, let's do that. What are you doing, Mumper? Oh, me, I'm just drinking fucking beer all the time and tweeting about it. I ain't got time to do any WoW stuff, you know. Yeah, just put a new pet in it. Put a new skin on it. Just change the colour of it. Give that out as a reward. So how do you legitimately reward these Timewalker dungeons and raids? It's going to be very difficult to do so. It's going to be very difficult because of the crappy currency system that we have now, and the way that Blizzard are so paranoid that people always do the easiest method possible with which to gain gear. So if they put gear in it, we're damned. If they put placebo pets in it, we're damned. And of course, they can't put mounts in it, folks, because the mounts just go on the Blizzard store. Right? So a reward factor for it would be eek. It could be an almighty mess. Personally, how you could transmog. That's the only thing that I can really think of that could be conceived as a decent-ish reward. You know, each dungeon had the chance, or certain bosses in certain dungeons had the chance to drop a transmoggable piece of gear for your class. For whether it be a warlock or a hunter or a mage or a warrior, etc., etc. Or you built up currency within these dungeons, a complete separate transmogrification currency to go to a transmog vendor. And the transmog vendor would have multiple different transmogs for you to pick and play with. So, that is my only kind of current idea, but I'm going to shoot myself down with my next point on why we shouldn't have these in the game. And the biggest reason is Blizzard. No, legitimately, this is the biggest reason why we shouldn't have Timewalker Dungeons or Timewalker Raids. Because, number one, putting it in the game is only giving you stuff to do because the current content isn't being supported. That is one of the only reasons I could see it being put in the game. Let's say Timewalker stuff went into the game. It would only be going into the game because Blizzard would turn around then and say, look, we put all our time and effort into making these Timewalker dungeons and raids for you to do. We didn't have time or resources to put any proper fucking stuff. That's what you would get. That is what you would legitimately get. You would get Blizzard doing their current go-to bullshit line. And it doesn't matter if they've got 220 people that they've got in for Warlords of Draenor. Great effort with 6.1, guys. Or if it's 150 people that they had with Mists of Pandaria. Great effort after 5.4, guys. That 14 months of fuck all was awesome. You know what I mean? Or it doesn't matter if we're talking about the 90-odd people that they had back in Wrath of the Lich King when content was getting farted out their backsides. Brilliant content as well. It doesn't matter. What they would say is, we've put all our resources into doing these Timewalker dungeons that we had to cut something from the game. So you lost a raid tier. You lost new dungeons because we did the old dungeons. You lost a zone. You lost an island. You lost a quest hub. Well, all you've really lost is just hundreds of pounds worth of sub fee, let's face it. That's what you would get. Blizzard would use it as an excuse. They would actually use it against the community for producing content, for producing updated current content. And that is my huge issue as to why this shouldn't even be entertained. Because if Blizzard start going down this pathway, that's what we're going to get. And I'm also, and this could be a bit harsh, and I understand if this comes across as a bit harsh. I'm not trying to have a go at you people out there who haven't experienced this kind of stuff, but this is just kind of like a logical procedure from my own brain. As far as I'm concerned, this content's been and gone. This content has been, gone, and had its day. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with that at all. It has been relevant content at one point when the classes were in a situation that they're in at that time and not in a situation that they're in now where it's been completely revamped. Talent tree's gone, now we've just got talent abilities, spells gone, yada yada yada. So when we experienced the dungeons in that time, when I was playing the Burning Crusade and I did that dungeon as a Burning Crusade dungeon, that's how it was meant to be played. That is how it was created, that is how it's meant to be played, and now it's had its day, and now it's gone. And if I decide to go back into that dungeon now, I'm going back into that for the nostalgic element of it. Nostalgia to me doesn't mean that I have to be able to do it at the current level that it is, because I can still walk in, I can still hear that music. Hear that music of the dungeon which goes into you. And it's amazing how much music is a trigger in your brain. It's like smells. You could smell a girl's perfume if you're out in the streets, and it just reminded me of that girl I used to date back in, 2006, and I'd be like, oh God, that's just like, it's just like Sarah's perfume. Oh yeah. And it's a trigger. It's the same with the music in the World of Warcraft. When you go into, when I go to Magister's Terrace and such, when I go into Magister's Terrace in the Isle of Keldanas, my heart just, because I hear that gorgeous, I don't know if it's cello. If it is cello, awesome. If it's not cello, don't shout at me. But that beautiful kind of like haunting cello and string music that you get, the Blood Elf kind of vibe. And it makes my heart leap with just, and I just remember those days and weeks and months of the Burning Crusade and doing these dungeons, and it just triggers ideas, and it just triggers thoughts and memories in my brain, and they're brilliant, and that's awesome. And there's nothing wrong with that, Blizzard. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Just let it be. And if you didn't experience the content, you could say to me, yeah, but as I didn't play in the Burning Crusade, or I didn't play in Wrath of the Lich King, I joined the game in Cataclysm, or I joined the game in Mists of Pandaria, it would have been amazing to see what those dungeons were like. So that's why I want Timewalker. But that's just the problem. You would not be experiencing them as they were. That's the whole crap. That's the misconception here. You wouldn't. You would be playing it as a shell of what it was because of the way that the characters have now developed. So you would never know. You would absolutely never know how they truly played unless you were playing vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, etc., etc. Do you understand? Do you get where I'm coming from here? You would experience a placebo of it. You would experience a shell of what it used to be. You would experience a dungeon, but it wouldn't be how it was at that time. So you would never know. Unless you're playing on a private server that is just unmodded and is just organic to how it used to be back in those expansions, you will never ever now experience it how it used to be. And that's not a sad thing. It's just life. It's just life. But you can still go into them now. We can still relive them as nostalgic content. What we should be looking for in the World of Warcraft is you just have to log on to the game now. There is sweet fuck all to do. And that's not your fault. And that's not my fault. That fault can only be placed at the feet of one set of people. That is Blizzard, and that is the developers of the game. They choose what content gets put into the game. They have chosen in the current expansion 6.1 not to fucking do anything. This would just act as an excuse to do less because of they would claim, like I said, just, we put all our time and effort into doing these. No. We need to look at the World of Warcraft as a constantly evolving title. It's an MMO RPG. It should evolve. It should evolve, and it should evolve organically, and it should evolve as the times are changing and new fangled systems come in and all that kind of stuff. What we really need in the World of Warcraft is new, modern, current content that will, in itself, one day fade away into retro content. But that is what we need. We don't need Timewalker Dungeons acting as an excuse for Blizzard to give us little current stuff to do. No, that is the way it will be twisted. That is the way it will be perceived in Blizzard's eyes. So in an ideal world, yes, it would be great. The problem is this isn't an ideal world at all. Not in the slightest. This is as far from an ideal world as we could possibly get. So what we really need to do is say no. No, thank you, but no thanks. They've been, they've gone, they've had the day. Blizz, do you know what we really want? We want you to give us something to do with our level 100s. We want proper stuff to do at current maximum level. That's what we want. And that's what we deserve. That's not what we're getting. So there you go. That is my point of view on Timewalker Dungeons, Timewalker raids coming into the World of Warcraft. It shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen. It will be perverted, it will be twisted, and it will be used against us not to produce further additional modern, contemporary, up-to-date content. So I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, and it's my 3-year anniversary vid, please do click the like and also subscribe to my channel as well. Follow me on social media as well as twitch.tv for live streaming. All those links are in the description down below, and I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.